Yeah, you mentioned the need for international organizations going out there to capacity build.
Yeah.
But even as we talk about this big word, carbon credits, and what we need to do, in terms of policies, what is a carbon credit policy as Kenya to say?
Yeah, just beginning with carbon market. It's something that has been introduced to, let's say, to a lot of people recently. Of course, it has been there, as it is also acknowledged within the Paris Agreement and its critical role that can help in shaping or paving way towards offsetting emissions. But again, when it comes to our systems, you find that not very many people are conversant with carbon markets and how it works. On policy itself, the market is still volatile, and even the international policy process, it's still volatile, that the policies need to be reimagined and they need to be reinvented further. I know Kenya is coming up with its own policies to regulate the market, which is really critical towards ensuring that communities are getting their equitable share of this critical asset carbon markets. But again, there's a lot of conflicting interests and perspectives from different stakeholders, policy groups, scientists, and also local communities who have very distinctive ideas on how it works. Specifically on activists, you find that many activists argue that carbon market is not a necessity right now for Africa because our emission is negligible, and we need to come up with a different perspective in putting our priority first. Of course, carbon markets is critical in ensuring that communities are also being recognized as part of mitigating the climate change, being part of the solution. But again, specifically when you talk about the voluntary carbon markets, you find that communities that are within between the intermediaries and the communities and the voluntary carbon market system itself, communities are not getting their equitable share because these carbon credits, they're shrouded in misery. And therefore, we need to come up with a policy that ensures that it solves the issue of integrity when it comes to voluntary carbon markets. Another thing is on voluntary carbon markets, some intermediaries, they also do not show that their initiatives have carbon offsetting processes. But again, how is this money reaching out to communities? Because when you have, let's say, an acre or 10 acres of land with vegetation, let's say forests and trees, we need also to come up with a clear policy on how you are going to get your equitable share from the trees you have. But this is something that still not so many people know how the market value is being calculated. And therefore, these are things that we need to capacity build within our local communities. The carbon market, of course, it has a very difficult jargons perspective, perhaps that it's really difficult to explain them to someone. But now the government also needs to play a critical role in ensuring that local communities are understanding how the carbon market works, and also the fact that the market is still volatile. We need to come up with our own policies to protect our own people working within these systems, the local communities, the local organization-based, like now the mangrove restoration projects. It is really, really vital towards ensuring that carbon sequestration is a pivotal part in realizing, your effort is being acknowledged within the carbon market system.
And now let's scale that down because now we're talking in terms of a policy level from the national government, yeah? Mm-hmm. And now we have the counties, which are also governments that deal with people at the grassroots. Now, how critical is it, say, for Nairobi County to realize that we have, say, let me give an example, Ngong Forest that is worth X amount it's a carbon market, it is worth X amount. Therefore, having a policy as Nairobi County that they can use to negotiate, going to, say, Narok County, we have Mau, we go to the Aberdares as well. How important is it for the counties to also be participants in this conversation and being also champions in making sure that the communities at the grassroots understand what carbon markets are and how they will benefit from that by them not just planting trees, but make sure that they grow as well?
Yeah, that is really pivotal. the county governments now coming in to bridging in this, deficit gap of knowledge and ideas on how the counties can benefit from this. It's really pivotal. What the counties can do, as a county, they need to come up with let's say, frequent decision-making platforms, initiatives, bringing in people's perspective, letting them talk or speak about what they think about the initiative, and now the county now bringing in the expertise on how this information can be disseminated within the local communities for them to understand how the carbon markets initiative works. Another thing, we can relay a lot of on green climate funds or the climate bonds that can also play a critical role towards scaling up carbon market initiatives, and also realizing that the counties or the local authorities are taking part towards realization that people are coming up with clear mechanisms that ensures resilience for the local counties, and also ensuring that the counties can also benefit in terms of regeneration of more capital from these carbon markets as an initiative. But on my personal thinking, I'm somehow conflicted about the carbon market initiatives, because I find that our emission is negligible. But I believe that on our common position, we should now bring in an African position, pushing for emissions to be cut down at the source, tackling the root causes of emissions. And now, because carbon market, it's like somebody's paying you money for the pollution, or for them to continue being in the market. This is just an initiative or a way to reduce down the roadmap towards cutting down emissions. It's like putting the polluters more in business and giving you handouts.
And you actually raise a very fundamental question that was that's where I was headed next. Now, everyone that I've talked about when issues to do with carbon credits, they say carbon credits, as you rightfully put it, they look at it as, I am the polluter. Yeah. You are the person with the carbon markets. You have your trees. Therefore, I will look at your market, I will look at your trees and decide this is how much I think it's worth, give you that money so that I continue emitting. And as we're having this discussion, how important is it for us to have a discussion where, whilst you're giving us the money to continue cleaning, but it is important for you to also make sure that in a year, say, you've cut down emissions by 30%, so that we know in the next 3-4 years, you have gone net zero.
Yeah, this is now again where the issue of integrity comes in. And also now the policies, they should also be playing a critical role in shaping out how we can map out frameworks on how the carbon markets initiative works, how we can map out the issue of accountability. Because when you check on the bigger picture, still the issue of policies on carbon markets still needs to be reimagined. And the African Carbon Markets Initiative has also been playing a critical role in terms of providing insightful knowledge and ideas on how Africa as a continent, we can navigate the carbon markets ideology, on how we can benefit, but also realizing, coming up with ways that we can put the polluters to account, not only gaining what carbon market, the goodies that the carbon market brings, but also forgetting the detrimental impacts that comes with it. Another thing is that the UNEP report, previous report, showed that we are still way far in terms of achieving the 2030 SDGs. But now emissions, they need to begin at least falling. We need to reduce emissions at least by 8%, yearly, if we are to reach out, if we are to mitigate climate change, at least reaching out to the targets by 2050 or 2045, as the targets are set. Like 2023 was one of the hottest year that ever been experienced. But now the trajectory shows that the global warming is increasing, the Arctic is continuing to melt, and we are approaching the climate tipping points. Of course, it will not happen overnight, but we are approaching the climatic tipping point, and it will be really, really difficult to go behind. And therefore, we need to act in resilience, act with caution, and also ensuring that, you know, whatever we are doing, we are working collectively to tackle the triple planetary crisis, which is the plastic pollution, biodiversity loss, and now the wider climate change effects and its detrimental impacts in local communities.
And now, on a personal level, in a few words, what should a Kenyan out there do in terms of lowering their carbon footprint, going net zero? What should we do, and what conversations really should we be having with our government? Yeah,
for Kenyan, I'd say that, you know, innovative thinking plus, you know, tangible commitment is really a critical asset in mitigating climate change. This means that, you know, you can come up with local easy initiative that can help reduce your carbon footprint. Number one, for example, it's powering off the electricity if you're not using it, trying to use the grid systems. You can also come up with ways to produce your own, you know, food, just as the way the ambassador was doing. And also, you know, being in a local climate educator in your local community, it's something easier you can do. You do not have to come up, you know, with a lot of our projects that requires a lot of money, but, you know, small impacts make a bigger difference. And therefore, our government also should continue playing a critical role towards, you know, supporting initiatives, and also realization on how we can restructure the international monetary framework. Because, you know, to tackle climate change, again, the climate finance is a bigger part that, you know, plays a critical role. And the way the president has been calling out for reimagination of international financial frameworks for mitigating climate change, this is really, really pivotal, and also policymakers have been pushing for it, because if we are to mitigate the climate change, then we are all supposed to be speaking in the same voice.
Finally, how soon do you think we will start seeing electric vehicles en masse on these roads, or are we far off?
Yeah, we are still far off. But again, we're already seeing electric vehicles in our roads, but we are still far off being a global south country. We are far off by, let's say, individual purchase of electric cars. Of course, in the market, they're still expensive. And I believe this is why people are still going or opting for oil-powered vehicles. But again, with time, we are still evolving into this critical path. And this is where now the transitioning process is also pivotal in realization. We are transitioning to clean renewables energy, putting local communities at the forefront, putting indigenous knowledge, and also incorporating different perspectives from, you know, stakeholders, policy making, you know, different people in the communities speaking collectively in one voice, if we are to tackle the triple planetary crisis.
And I think I'll just finally, on the same question, is it about time that government saw the need of having incentives and on people who are importing electric vehicles?
Yeah.
And how important is that, briefly?
Yeah. I think it is important, because, you know, it can help realizing on how, you know, or motivating people to go to net zero transition, and also realizing that there's more clear efforts in realizing that our economy, we are offsetting the carbon market, not carbon market, we're offsetting the emissions collectively as a community.
And that is Clive Donnelly. He is an environment ambassador and activist. Climate change is his forte. And he says that you and I need to play our part. The governments need to come up with policies that will make it easier for us to realize net zero. These with others who are already doing amazing stuff. You've seen from the story what is happening, vertical gardens, recycling, embracing clean energy, and just everybody doing their part, making sure that we are carbon